Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple, GoodPod, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have two wonderful guests for you today. Diana Renn. She'll be here to celebrate the Owl Prowl Mystery, Trouble at Turtle Pond. And later in the show, we'll be meeting Kevin M. Hall. He is the author of Signs. The veil is thinner than we imagine. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to let you know that we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Your Face Lights Up the World by Jody Meltzer, illustrated by Jody King Camera. This is a heartwarming story that teaches valuable lessons about self-acceptance and sibling relationships. Set against the backdrop of a simple outdoor adventure, the story follows Harper and her twin brother Hunter as they navigate their feelings and perceptions of each other. Harper and Hunter, initially at odds after a disagreement with their mom, embark on a quest to build a fort. Along the way, they discover more than just sticks and stones. They uncover hidden truths about themselves and about each other. Through playful banter and sibling rivalry, the characters reveal their vulnerabilities and insecurities, ultimately leading to a deeper understanding and appreciation of one another. The narrative is rich with emotion and authenticity, capturing the complexities of sibling dynamics with honesty and sensitivity. Harper's journey of self-discovery, triggered by her brother's unexpected compliments about her freckles, is a poignant reminder of the power of self-love and acceptance. As Harper learns to embrace her unique features and sees them as symbols of beauty and individuality, readers are encouraged to celebrate their own differences and imperfections. Our certified great read team absolutely loves Your Face Lights Up the World, our brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read written by Jody Meltzer. This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nussbaumer Knaflick and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Massachusetts. Our guest is here today to celebrate a couple of great middle grade novels. The Owl Prowl Mystery is her latest, along with Trouble at Turtle Pond. Please welcome to the show, Diana Renn. Hey, Diana, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I just returned from a hike around Houghton's Pond, part of the Blue Hills Reservation, and you live near a couple of famous ponds as well.
I do. I live very close to Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts, which is made famous by Henry David Thoreau, who spent some time living beside it. And I also live near the Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, which was a huge inspiration for my books.
Cool. Yeah. I feel so blessed. I mentioned it here on the podcast. Reedville is is a small neighborhood within the city of Boston, but I am as far away from downtown Boston as you can be, and still be within the city limits. There is a bird sanctuary, directly adjacent to our property, and, the Blue Hills Reservation is, within walking distance, and it's just so lovely.
Yeah, we have such a wealth of sanctuaries, official or not, here in our state. And I bet that's true of a lot of our country, right? There may be pockets of nature that aren't even recognized where we can find that kind of sense of awe or peace or whatever it is, or something to protect. It's pretty great.
It really is. And speaking of great, the Owl Prowl Mystery. Tell us about this great novel.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the Owl Prowl Mystery is book 2 in a planned series of 4 ecological mysteries or eco mysteries featuring the Backyard Rangers. So it's the second, but it can be read out of sequence. I think it works as a standalone. Other people have said the same, but hopefully people might start with this and want to go back to Turtle Pond or vice versa. But these books feature a group of kids called the Backyard Rangers, and they're self-appointed young wildlife rangers who make it their business officially to investigate wildlife crimes in their community. They also live quite close to a wildlife refuge. In my case, this is a fictitious version of My Great Meadows. So it's called Marsh Hollow, and their town is Marsh Hollow, Massachusetts. Does not actually exist. Looks a bit like mine. Might even look a bit like yours. It's a bit of a composite. Anyway, so in Trouble at Turtle Pond, they are investigating crimes related to endangered freshwater turtles that we have in Massachusetts called Blanding's turtles. And in book 2, they are investigating bird crimes. There are some bad birders around looking at fall migrants and not always behaving ethically in the ways that they birdwatch. And specifically, there are some bad owl birders around, and crowds are coming partly to see a celebrity owl that they have named Bella, a barred owl who is very visible in the daytime and attracting a lot of attention. And the kids find some evidence that maybe someone is baiting Bella and other owls, and that means they're perhaps offering some mice to lure the owls closer, and that really impacts the owls' behavior. It flushes them out of their roosting places. It may drive them into roads, and so some unfortunate things are starting to happen with the Marsh Hollow owl population. That is a tongue twister.
Yeah, it certainly is. Wow. I love being out in nature. We didn't look for this particular house in this area. We just kind of happened on it, and it was such a lucky thing to have happened to us. So my kids kind of grew up around nature, and it's so I think you said awe-inspiring. And I hope that the Owl Prowl Mystery gets kids out into nature and become curious about nature. When you were saying unethical birding, I couldn't imagine what that was. I'm glad you mentioned, feeding it the dead mice and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, I had not heard of unethical birding either. I am an amateur birder. I don't know if I'm confident enough to say I'm an expert birder. I'm learning more and more. I've been doing this for several years now. And I always, kept bird feeders and was paying attention to birds in my yard and thought I was caring for them. And I read a wonderful and important book by Laura Erickson called 100 Ways to Help Birds. And I realized is it harm birds? I don't know. I realized I was doing about 100 things wrong. We can do things unethically that we don't realize, from kind of bringing them too close to our windows where they're at risk of collision, to putting up feeders at the wrong time, to not cleaning the feeders. There's many, many ways that we could be more helpful to birds that we aren't totally aware of. So it's not that they're all crimes, right? But their behavior changes. We could be better neighbors to birds, I guess is my point. And that's what I learned, and that's what the kids and then their community are starting to learn.
What was it that inspired you to write this series of Echo Mysteries?
Yeah, it started really with parent volunteer work in my son's fourth grade classroom. So parents out there, be careful what you volunteer for, because it may lead you into a big rabbit hole of research and then writing a book. But in seriousness, the fact is that we moved into a neighborhood that had a lot of turtles and wildlife. We lived in a more urban place before. I was kind of in awe of that. My son was in awe of that. His classroom had turtles. They were caring for endangered turtles, overwintering them, feeding them, releasing them to a pond in the spring. And they were working in partnership with a program run by Zoo New England. And so parents were needed at various points for field trips, or in some cases to help care for the turtles, during vacation times. We ended up getting incredibly involved with this group, and my son went on, community expeditions looking for nesting turtles. We fostered 10 baby turtles in our guest bedroom one summer. And when it kind of ended this phase, I thought, wow, how do people not know about these turtles and the incredible community work done by neighborhoods and schools to care for and bring up the population of these endangered turtles? So I wrote a book about it because I thought this would make a great mystery, and I wanted to write middle grade. And this was, for sure happening with middle grade aged kids. And I couldn't leave the characters. I just loved them so much, and I felt like they had fresh adventures. The turtles do carry into the owl book. We continue to see them because, we're not done with the animal and we put it away, right? The animals continue to be in the world and to have needs, but there's also new things we can pay attention to.
So cool. I love that. We should, I don't know, because schools need volunteers. I was going to say we should probably warn parents that once they volunteer, they're hooked.
Yeah.
If you're on PTO, you're not getting, and you join at when your kids are in kindergarten, you're there for 8 years, maybe 12. But let's not tell anybody because school. Yeah. So did you always aspire to be a children's author?
I actually did. I have written some things for adults. I thought as I got into my 20s that I would be writing important novels for adults, and I tried some. And everything I wrote had children or teens in them. And I started paying attention to those voices. So my first novel, Tokyo Heist, was actually for teens. I wrote 3 international mysteries featuring globe-trotting teens. Those are published with Viking Penguin Random House. And those really got me just hooked in the children's literature community. And, I love the people writing in this space. I love the audience. I love connecting with kids at school visits. And then I knew that this eco mystery series, I wanted younger kids. These mysteries and situations seemed much more appropriate for younger kids. So I pivoted in that direction. And I found recently, looking through some old juvenile papers at my mother's house, a kind of manifesto I'd written as a kid saying, I will be a children's book author. And I wish I had found that in my 20s when I wasted some time writing these big, important books for adults that went nowhere, because I really think my needle just points more in the kids' direction, and that's where I'm most comfortable writing.
Well, I think that these are pretty important books. They may not be big. They may be shorter than those novels that you wrote, but I think inspiring kids to develop a love of nature and a curiosity about nature and inspiring them to take action, I think is a pretty important thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to agree. Yeah, absolutely. I feel that when I connect with kids on school visits and I realize, I'm not teaching them something they don't already know. A lot of kids are already being incredible stewards of their environment and taking care of all kinds of creatures. And, they're deeply interested in animals and our environment, and they're engaging with those things in all different ways. So, that's been really inspiring to just learn from the kids that are already out there doing the backyard rangers type of work.
Yeah. So our kids are really lucky because they are so close to nature and grew up so close to nature. But there are many more kids who are living, as I did growing up, in the inner cities, and they don't have as, easy access to nature. What kind of suggestions would you have for parents who are in those cities, ways that they can get their kids out into nature and inspire that love?
Yeah, I really love this question. I will say I wrestled with the term backyard rangers for a bit for this group because, yes, they're really privileged to live in places where they all have backyards and front yards and this incredible wildlife refuge that isn't well cared for. It has some budget issues, but they have access to it. And so in book 2, actually, in the Owl Prowl mystery, I do have the kids talking explicitly about what it means to have a backyard and that, you know, any place could be a backyard. You could have a community backyard, and that might look like a park. That might look like your school playground. That might look like a patch of green bordering a parking lot. There are so many places where we can find nature and start paying attention. So I have some free downloadable teachers guides or discussion guides on my website where I have a lot of activities kind of like this, but some that come to mind would be locating any sort of place near you, no matter how small, and sitting with it for 15 minutes a day and keeping a little nature notebook and writing observations and asking some questions like what if, or just some grounding. I see, I smell, I feel, I hear, just noticing things. And that will spark curiosity. And there may be things that move into that space like birds or bugs. And, you know, we start to notice, well, nature is really everywhere. Maybe there's a flower pot in a window. That's nature. You know, there's so many different types of nature. We don't have to be in the great wilderness to experience it. And so all of the work that the kids are doing in my books in their backyards can be done in any sort of community space. And I really would advocate looking closely at school playgrounds, even if they are paved over, because you always find something trying to push up through that sidewalk, or, you know, there's a tree somewhere and there are things living there and you can notice those and protect them.
Yeah. I have mentioned on the show, we unfortunately had to take this beautiful tree down. But for about 25 years, we had this giant oak tree that was just absolutely spectacular. And the kids swung from it and climbed on it. And oftentimes me and my daughter would sit underneath it and I'd read to her or just look up into the branches, imagining all the different creatures that were calling this tree home.
Wow.
I think that's something everybody can find a tree, and especially at summertime. Boy, it's we're melting here in Massachusetts the last few days, and just planting yourself underneath a tree, it just cools it down. It's like 10 degrees different. What
Absolutely. Yeah.
Air conditioning.
Yeah. Befriend a tree. I'm a big proponent. I just also would add the kids in the Owl Prowl mystery. They, are often in a little patch of woods called the Forgotten Forest. They give it that name, and it's really not an official woods, but it's undeveloped land next to the protagonist's house, and it probably will be developed at some point. And yet there are trees there and things. And once they're inside there, it's just magical. And I think we can be open to finding these patches of places and trees to shelter us.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it about the owls that made you put the spotlight on them in your second book?
Yeah. So with this series, I seem to get ideas based on creatures that are coming into my yard. I do have turtles that come into my yard. So in addition to the access I had with the school program, we have them in the street, we have them in the yard, mostly snapping turtles. And so that kind of got my gears turning in my mind. And then when an owl showed up for me outside my kitchen window when I was looking around for possible book 2 ideas, I really paid attention to that. I hear owls. I have some woods nearby. And then I was fortunate to see one, and it really felt like being visited. Like, I have a story, find it. And so I started tuning into that. And I've always just loved owls. I have a picture of myself at age 5 playing an owl in a school play about not littering and being sort of a proponent for conservation before I knew what it was. And I've always kept that picture over the years because I feel like it's the child in me that I write for sometimes. So I just love owls. And I thought, wow, let's learn more about them. And I like birds, but let's focus on owls because they're a little bit more charismatic and easier to spot if you're really looking for them, if you're paying attention, at least in my fictitious world of Marsh Hollow. Birds can kind of flip by quickly, but, you know, owls are a presence and they have some important concerns that we should pay attention to.
Yeah. Before I ask you about those concerns, I had an experience. I was in Baxter State Park with a friend up in Maine, near Mount Katahdin, and we're camped alongside a lake, and we're just enjoying the moon and the stars, and this thing swooped over us. It was completely silent until it passed over,
Wow.
and it was a giant owl. It just
So cool.
and but it was just so silent. We didn't hear anything,
Mm.
and once it passed, it was like, and it was just beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. That's that sense of awe, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what are some of the concerns that you were mentioning about owls that we should be aware of?
Yeah, well, one of the more recent incidents that really got me thinking about how to consider mystery and crime related to owls was the unfortunate story of Barry the barred owl in Central Park in New York City. During the pandemic, this barred owl, similar to Bella in my book, is outside a lot in a very prominent place, seems friendly, seems to have a kind of personality. And a lot of people became birders because of Bella. They came and so because of Barry, they followed this owl around, took pictures. There were birding groups. That's not all bad, but it became a lot of crowd control issues, right? A lot of people kind of walking around looking for the owl. And eventually, Barry unfortunately died because of a collision with a service truck in the park. And an autopsy later showed that there was rodenticide in the owl's system. So owls, especially in urban environments, but even suburban environments, if they get into a certain type of rodenticide, it will, of course, infect the mouse, and then they eat the mouse, and that infects the owl. This happens to hawks and foxes and like lots of other animals as well. But it really is a problem, especially in my area, with owls and their health. And it can lead to car strikes. It can lead to erratic flight patterns. It can lead to just illness and collapse. So that's not a good thing. And I think even kids can start to be aware of the dangers of certain types of poisons and how are we managing wildlife. And in fact, owls are great natural pest control systems. So my book touches on that without getting too graphic. It touches on that issue. But even when people are kind of following a celebrity bird, maybe an owl, they're disrupting other bird habitats if they're not being mindful. And so if you have a lot of people crashing through woods or, shining flashlights or taking pictures, or hopefully not, but it happens, luring the owls with various, calls on apps on their phone even, it impacts their behavior and it habituates them to humans, and they lose some of those natural hunting instincts that they have. They become more dependent on us.
Wow. Are you thinking of writing a story featuring the most dangerous, fearsome creature that's found here in Massachusetts, the wild turkey?
Oh, I thought you were going to say bear, because somebody in our town just noticed one in their backyard recently, the wild turkey. That's a great question. I love those wild turkeys. They're so fun.
Well, they are, but here in the city, we have city turtles. I mean, city turkeys that are really vicious and very aggressive. And many of our neighbor writes on social media of being trapped in their cars by a flock of turkeys.
I'm going to come check out your town, because ours are more like clueless as opposed to vicious. They are bumbling across roads. Now they have young ones that are toddling along behind them. They tie up traffic. That's our biggest problem, probably. Or maybe I've been lucky. I'm going to investigate that.
So tell us, what other creatures are we going to meet in the rest of the series?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on a book 3, which features foxes among some other animals, but that's kind of the keystone animal of the book. And it's a winter story. And so my thinking is that each book focuses on a specific season and prominently features a specific animal. And we are likely going to meet some frogs and other animals related to vernal pools in the springtime book that will finish out the series.
Awesome. Where can folks go to find out more about you and find out more about the Owl Prowl Mystery?
Okay, well, I would say come see my website, dianarennbooks.com. I have lots of information there and links to resources. I also have a newsletter. It's on Substack. It's free. You can subscribe or just check it out. Substack, Diana Renn, Mysteries That Matter. And I write a lot about the intersection of nature and mystery writing and real life mysteries in my backyard, lots of pictures, cute dog pictures, and also how those become seeds for ideas. And I hope to kind of inspire people to find their own stories in their own natural spaces or community spaces, whatever they are, and grow those ideas into bigger works of art, whatever they may be.
Awesome. And I wanted to mention, I forgot to, you had mentioned that you have teacher resources on your website. Parents, you are your kids' first and most important teachers, so you can have access to those things. Don't.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are for sure, just not restricted to classrooms. And there's a lot of fun expansion activities, arts and crafts, cross-curricular connections. So have at it.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Owl Prowl Mystery. Our guest has been Diana Renn. Hey, Diana, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. Watch out for those turkeys.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us from the great state of New York. Our guest is here today to celebrate a really powerful book. I am fascinated. The book is called Signs. The Veil is Thinner Than We Imagined. Please welcome to the show, Kevin Hall. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Doing good, Jed. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited about talking to you about Signs. It's reminding me, I fell in love with this medium of conversational radio podcast back when I was a kid. There was a broadcaster here in Boston. His name was Larry Glick, and he had the overnight shift. And he would bring on the most fascinating guests talking about everything. And he'd have the guys on who saw Bigfoot and the folks on who were abducted by aliens and probed in some very nasty ways, but also talking about folks like we're going to talking about things that we just don't quite understand, and that might be giving us a glimpse into another dimension or another chapter in our lives that we're all going to be experiencing at some point. So tell us about Signs.
Thanks, Jed. Signs was a book that it kind of forced me, I guess is a good way of saying it, to write it. I've had a lot of personal experiences, and when we had some friends up for a visit, and this is going back a number of years, the unfortunate thing, Jed, is the woman I'll mention in it had just recently passed to cancer. But at the time, she was very vibrant, her and her husband. Her husband's name is Brad. He has been my best friend since high school. And, we would do things together as families. We were best men at each other's wedding. He's my brother from another mother. That's the best way to describe it. They came up for a visit, and in the evening we'd sit around and either chat or play games or, go out for dinner, that kind of thing. And we happened to have been sitting at home playing dominoes. And at the time, my wife, when she was thinking, she would fiddle with the earring, and the earring itself came off from its backing and fell. So she got up to look for the earring, couldn't find it. We said, okay, let's halt the game. We got up, we looked around, we couldn't find it. That night when we went to bed, she shook out her clothes and brushed her hair. Nothing. Couldn't find this earring. The next morning, we come downstairs for breakfast before we left for the day, and we're sitting at the kitchen island, and we are all having breakfast and good chat. Afterwards, cleared off the island, wiped it down, left for the day. Come back that evening, and I was the first one in, unlocking the back door and just bringing folks in through the back hallway. And my wife right behind me says, "Hon, you found my earring." I said, "Wait a minute, time out. What earring?" She says, "That earring right there on the island." Whoa. And the woman, Louise, said that, wait a minute. We wiped down that island. There was nothing on that island when we left. How did that earring get there? Well, what my wife didn't tell me at the time, other than it was a gift and she would be sad if she lost it, it was a gift from my mom, who had passed on like the year or so earlier. And so that, at that point in time, was kind of the catalyst that said, I have to write this book. There's been too many of these things that have happened. This one happened in front of witnesses, and they would tell us stories that they have encountered, and Louise would keep a little cardinal charm in her purse, and she'd take that cardinal charm out and she would place it where these events occur. And so she took it out and put it on the island, and it's kind of like an omen, a goodwill gesture, if you will. And so that's the other thing I did within the book, was to research a lot of these kinds of things, and cardinals show up quite a bit as being messengers. And the redness of their wings is said to be the divine touch of God. It is Jesus's blood. And getting into some of the folklore, finding out that a lot of Indian tribes coveted the cardinal feather as much as they did the eagle feather. They believed the cardinal feather was the soul of past warriors, so they would put that into their headband and wear that into wars or battles that they had, figuring it would give them more strength. So the book goes into a lot of history. I go back to the days of the Egyptians, the Druids, the Roman Empire. I go to cultures of China, Japan, India. I talk about the Norse and a lot of their beliefs. And the Norse really talk about this as being thin places. And so the book combines not only stories and stories of interviews that I've interviewed a lot of people that have some very, very interesting stories to tell, but I also dig into the history. And then I look at to some of the experts from psychology and biology and medical industries to see where are we going with all of this today. And that really is the culmination of the book. And the book, the more interviews I had, the more I said, oh, you've got to go down here. And folks that were knew that I was writing the book would send me little tidbits. Oh, check this guy out. The hardest part, Jed, of writing the book was getting the interview of these people. And one gentleman did escape me, and he happens to be a movie star. And the issue there was I tried contacting his alma mater, his fan club, his agents. I just could not get in touch with him no matter how hard he tried. And the reason I wanted to touch base with him was that he played the character in a show called On a Wing and a Prayer. And this was an Amazon Prime movie that came out on a Good Friday 2 years ago now. And the gentleman's name was Dennis Quaid. He played the main character, and the main character, Doug White, he went to his brother's funeral in Florida. He had chartered a plane to take him and his family back home to Louisiana. 10 minutes into the flight, the pilot dies. Doug now has to take over and land this plane. Oh. Well, Dennis Quaid played Doug in the movie, and I tell the story in there and some of the miraculous things that have happened. Long story short, Doug does land a plane, and as the folks on the ground said, there wasn't even a scuff on the tire.
Wow.
It's truly tremendous. And I've talked with folks that were in the Twin Towers on 9/11. The last guy to make it out alive, Ron DeFrancesco. I've also talked with, you might have heard of the Reaper pepper. I'm trying to think of the full name of it. The gentleman's name is Ed Curry. He developed the Reaper pepper. He's developed a new pepper called Pepper X. Well, the Reaper pepper was like 1.7 million Scoville heat units. The Pepper X is like 2.4 million Scoville heat units. This is a deadly pepper. You do not want to touch it. However, doctors are looking at it for cancer research.
Wow.
So there's so much of this. And when I get to hear their personal stories, it's just tremendous what has happened. And one of the guys going out of the Twin Towers, he actually felt something push his shoulder and direct him. And it directed him towards a certain stairwell that was probably the only open stairwell in the whole building that allowed him to get out.
Wow.
The other guy, the last one to make it out, twice heard someone tell him, get up and get out, go through it and get out. And nobody was around him. It's just him. And he managed to get through it while the building was falling down around him. He's running for his life, wakes up 3 days later in the hospital. He does have some injuries, but the thing is, he's alive. And here he was up on the 91st floor.
Wow.
You hear these stories, and there's the one that I love within the book. Jim Johnson was a basketball coach for Greece Athena. Now that's kind of close to me because I'm in Rush, New York. My kids at the time, we lived in Greece, went to Greece Athena, and my son played basketball on the varsity all through high school. Well, Jim Johnson was a basketball coach. Now this is after my son had graduated. There was a autistic kid on the team. They call him J-Mac. His full name, Jason McElwain. Jason wanted to play in the worst way. Only he was, if you remember the movie Rudy, where they said you're 100 and nothing, 5 foot nothing, and you competed against the greatest teams in the league here by getting on Notre Dame. That was kind of Jason. He was kind of like 5'6", maybe 90 to 100 pounds, hardly any athletic ability, but his greatest goal was to get on the team. Well, the coach created a position for him, and he was the assistant manager for the team. He would get the basketball players water, bring them towels, get them motivated before the game, go to all the workouts that they had. Any game he was there, always showed up with a white shirt and tie on. So he was really enthusiastic. Well, for his senior night, the coach elected to play him and said, look, I'm going to have you suit up. I can't guarantee you'll get in. It'll be determined on how the game goes. Well, the last maybe 10 minutes, the team was way up. With 4 minutes to go, Coach Jim Johnson looked down the bench, pointed to Jason. The crowd went wild. Jason jumped up. He wanted to run right out on the floor, but you have to check in first. Mm-hmm. So they got him. So check in. So the other players on the team were not coached to do what they did, but they kept passing Jason the ball. His first couple shots, air balls, total. So the coach bent down. He said, I did something you're probably not supposed to do. He said, I prayed to God and said, God, just let him make a basket. Well, God heard, had to. Next shot, 3-point swish. Jason went on to then, and now this is down less than 3 minutes in the game, to score a total of 20 points. He led his team in point scoring, basket after basket, 3-point after 3-point. His last shot would be called an NBA three. He was way beyond the arc. He let it go, swish. The crowd just rushes him on the floor, lifts him up. Now, during all that time, the coach is sitting on the bench, and the coach said, I had tears in my eyes. And all of a sudden, he feels a touch on his shoulder. He turns a look, and it was Jason's mom. And Jason's mom said, you just gave my son the greatest gift you could ever give him. And hearing this story, and then seeing what's happened afterwards, Jed, you now can go online. Well, let me take a step back. Jason goes on to become nationally known. The president, George W., flies into Rochester, lands on the tarmac, meets Jason, and says, can I call you J-Mac? He says, sure. And the president says, you can call me GW. And from there, he's on Oprah, and he's on all these different news shows, et cetera, et cetera. But it goes on beyond that. They both, the coach and Jason, write books on it. And now you can go online and you can find that kids with other disabilities are doing things like wrestling, soccer. There's been a number of basketball ones, football. All these kids that have this dream, but they have disabilities. One kid they showed for wrestling had such a disability. He was, barely moving to get out there. But the other kid, his opponent, was such a good sport. He kind of helped the kid pin him. Uh-huh. And the joy that brings to these kids. So I had lunch with the coach not long ago, and I said, Coach, what do you think all this is? And he says, it's the message of hope. And it's the spreading of hope. And this has gone all around the world. And this happened back in the early 2000s. And now it's still going on today.
Well, it's a great reminder of what we've talked about here on the podcast, that we can change someone's life with the smallest of acts of kindness. And we really, I love that you're sharing this book, because I think it's could be a super conversation between a parent and an older kid, just about that, thinking about who in your life has made a difference in your life. What
yes.
Small acts of kindness have changed your life, and what small acts of kindness can you do that can change somebody else's life?
Absolutely. And all it takes is one little small act, and it's amazing what that can do and the cascade it can have. And you mentioned this book can help older adults. I even think it can go down even to 12-year-olds and talk to them about it. You had Joe Gatto on your podcast not long ago, and he was talking about his dad passed at 19. Well, my dad passed at 19. I was actually on my honeymoon at the time, and it was the type of thing my wife and I, high school sweethearts, we just knew it, and we wanted to get married, and we did. And we've been married for 48 years now and still going strong, and 2 kids and 6 grandkids. And I've shared the book with them. My youngest grandkids are 6 and 8, and they lost their other grandmother 2 years ago, and they've had some signs. So we've talked about that a little bit, and my daughter, their mom, understands all of this, and so she's talked about it. And to let the kids know there is more. You know, we don't just end and go into nothing. We can be so much more. And all we have to do is embrace it. And I'll use the word here, just love one another. Love what you do and have fun with it and enjoy the journey. Yeah. Because that is what it is. It's a journey. We are on a journey. And I quote a couple of folks in there, in the book, and in talking about the journey. I mean, one is Stephen Covey, the other, and his name's escaping me. Oh, Mr. Star Trek Spock. Oh, I can't.
Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy. Thank you very much. I quote Leonard Nimoy in there. And, you know, the greatest, and then they talk about the greatest journey is embracing your own journey and going on. And I'm paraphrasing, but their quotes are in the book. And this book has really centered me. It is, I mean, I have a heart condition, but I'm okay. I go to the cardiologist. I'm fine. Someday I'll have the operation. But you know, if worse comes to worse, I'm okay with it. Yeah. And I embrace the kids. I embrace the grandkids. And this is the greatest time of my life. And I never thought, Jed, I would be an author. It never came to pass for me while I was working in my career in the private sector for 40 plus years. But when I retired, the grandkids, they were younger then, and they would say, Grandpa, what were you like as a kid? What did you do as a kid? So that's what got me started. And I would tell them stories, and I said, well, will they remember them? So I started to write them down. Next thing you know, I got a book. Next thing, and I now got 3 published books. So I guess I am an author.
That's wonderful. You know, you point out storytelling. One of the things when I launched Reading with Your Kids, I sat down with my beautiful wife and her best friend, who were both educators at the time. And I said, you know, I'm imagining most people that are listening to Reading with Your Kids, I'm preaching to the choir because they're already reading with their kids, and that's why they listen to Reading with Your Kids. How can we inspire the kids, the parents of your students in the inner city of Boston to read more? And they mentioned a number of different obstacles. You know, the families are working 3 or 4 jobs, they're exhausted, they might not speak English, they might not be able to read themselves. One of the things I hope that we can do, everybody who's listening can do, is to encourage a parent who might not feel comfortable reading to just tell those stories. Because that's, whether you're reading the stories and the kids are hearing the stories, the words coming out from the pages of a book, or just coming from your imagination and your memory, spending that time together, sharing those stories, it's a great way for kids to hear those 800,000 plus words we all hope our kids hear as we're reading with them every day. And it's also a great way to bond with those kids, like you bonded with your grandkids.
Absolutely is. And the 2 youngest ones, we would babysit them quite a bit, as my daughter and her husband both work. And so they would come to the house, and we would have a little bit of a ritual where before lunch, the 2 granddaughters, I'd get in the chair, they'd each sit on my lap, and we'd read a book, and then we'd watch a Curious George. And that just became the ritual. And let me tell you, the best gift as a grandparent is just doing something like that. Being with your grandkids, talking to them, and passing this stuff on. I can remember asking my mom, my dad died young, but asking my mom, what was it like? Oh, that's past history. You don't want to know about that. Just look forward to the future. I don't know a lot about my history from my mom's side. I know a lot from my dad's side, but not from my mom's. And the only reason I know it from my dad's side is I've got a great-great-grandfather that wrote a post-Civil War book. And so I've done a little bit of genealogy research on that end and found out Lyman Hall, who signed the Declaration of Independence, he is a relative. Winston Churchill, whose grandmother was Clarissa Hall, is a relative. And, I didn't know any of this until I was much older, but I would like to know from my mom's side, but she never really wanted to talk about it. So these are the messages that I try to pass on to my kids and the grandkids. Make sure you tell the stories. Keep those stories going. This is your legacy. You can leave behind all kinds of other material things, but it's the personal stories we tell that really unite us as a family.
Yeah. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Signs and more about your other work.
Yes, there's a number of spots, but the quickest and easiest is my website. It's Kevin-Hall, HALL.com. And you can go there and you can actually link over to purchase any of the books. There's also a download there of the story of Ron DeFrancesco from the Twin Towers. And you can also find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, and a number of other sites, as also a number of subgroups within each of those social media sites.
Awesome. We've had a really fascinating time speaking to the author of Signs. The veil is thinner than we imagine. Our guest has been Kevin Hall. Kevin, thanks so much for being with us.
Jed, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I hope folks really can take away some inspirational messages. And, also, I didn't mention this, the book is available through libraries, so you can even check it out. And if your library doesn't have it, they can definitely order it and bring it in.
Awesome. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope it inspires you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In fact, we hope it inspires you to do a couple of more things. First off, subscribe to the show wherever you may be finding the show. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple, Good Pods. We'd also love it if you would consider writing a review of Reading with Your Kids. 5-star reviews would be most welcome. It would really help us spread the word about all the many benefits of reading. We really appreciate that, so thank you in advance. We would also love for you to join us on social media, Facebook.com/Reading with Your Kids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We have a fantastic YouTube channel where you can find our Drawing with Your Kids and STEMIS Family Fun videos. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/Reading with Your Kids. And of course, we'd love for you to visit our website. So much to do on readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, visit our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame. Use the contact button up at the top of the page to send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better, and let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. And if you are an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest is fun, it's easy, it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans all around the world about your fantastic children's book. You can also learn about our effective and very affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we'll start, but with our two guests, Diana Renn. Please be sure to check out The Owl Prowl Mystery and Trouble at Turtle Pond. Also, Kevin M. Hall. Please be sure to check out Signs. The veil is thinner than we imagine. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Charade, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Oh,